most luxurious car brands on Earth, an $80 billion symbol of power and perfection was actually created by a broke young engineer. People used to laugh at a man who went to bed hungry while chasing a dream nobody believed in. His name was Karl Benz. Today, the Mercedes-Benz logo is a global icon, but 140 years ago, the world saw Benz as a fool trying to build a horseless carriage. Engineers mocked him, banks ignored him, investors forced him out of his own company. Yet he kept going, piece by piece, patent by patent, until he built what many call the world's first true automobile. But what nobody expected is the twist, because decades later, the same company that pioneered modern transportation would become deeply entangled with one of history's darkest regimes, producing vehicles for the Nazis and using forced labor during World War II. So sit back. This is the unbelievable, inspiring, and sometimes uncomfortable story of Mercedes-Benz and the man who brought cars to life, Karl Benz. Karl Benz didn't grow up surrounded by money, privilege, or opportunity. In fact, his childhood looked nothing like the origin story of someone who would reshape the entire world. Born in 1844 in Germany, Karl lost his father when he was just 2 years old. His mother, now suddenly alone, worked tirelessly just to keep the family afloat. Every meal, every school book, every winter coat, nothing came easy. But Karl wasn't like other children. While most kids played outside, he sat for hours staring at gears, metal pieces, and broken tools. He was obsessed with movement, how machines worked, why wheels turned, why engines failed. His mother noticed this spark, and despite barely surviving financially, she made a bold decision. She would do whatever it took to secure him an education. By the time he was a teenager, Karl was already showing signs of genius. But this is where reality hit hard. Even with talent, the world around him didn't believe in his dreams. Engineering was considered a respectable field, but the idea of creating a self-moving carriage, a vehicle that didn't need horses, that was fantasy. The kind of idea people mocked over beer in taverns. Still, Karl pushed on. He joined a small workshop as a machinist, often working late into the night. He took any job he could get, repairing metal, designing parts, just to save enough money for experiments. People around him whispered that he was wasting his life, but Karl didn't care. Every coin he earned went straight back into building something nobody had ever seen before. And slowly, quietly, the foundations of the automobile were being formed, not in a giant factory, not with corporate funding, but in the cramped workshop of a poor young engineer who refused to give up. By his late 20s, Karl Benz had reached a breaking point. Years of tinkering, sketching, and trial and error had drained both his wallet and his confidence. He had ideas, brilliant ideas, but ideas don't pay rent. And in the 1800s, nobody wanted to fund a dreamer building strange machines that didn't use horses. But then something happened that completely changed the trajectory of his life. Karl met a woman named Bertha Ringer, and she wasn't just any partner. She was fearless, sharp, confident, and, most importantly, she believed in him when nobody else did. Where banks rejected him, Bertha supported him. When people said he was chasing the impossible, Bertha told him to keep going. And when Karl worried he didn't have enough money to continue his experiments, Bertha stepped in and used her own dowry to fund his work. Bertha didn't just marry Karl, she literally invested in him. With her support, Karl opened a small iron working shop. It wasn't glamorous, dim light, dusty floors, old tools, but it became the birthplace of something revolutionary. In that cramped room, Karl sketched what many historians now call the birth certificate of the modern automobile, the Benz Patent-Motorwagen. It didn't look like a car, not even close. It had 3 skinny wheels, a wooden frame, and a single-cylinder engine that shook like it was nervous. But when Karl tightened the last bolt and turned the crank, something miraculous happened. The machine moved all by itself. No horses, no pushing, no tricks. On January 29, 1886, Karl filed the patent for what would become known as the world's first practical automobile. In that moment, the thing people laughed at, doubted, and dismissed became a reality. But here's the problem. A breakthrough doesn't matter if nobody sees it. And at this point, the world still wasn't convinced. That's where Bertha stepped in again. And what she did next would change everything. Karl had built the world's first automobile, but almost nobody cared. To the public, it still looked like a fragile, noisy science experiment. Investors weren't lining up. Newspapers weren't talking about it. And Karl himself, quiet, cautious, and deeply afraid of failure, hesitated to show the world what he'd created. But Bertha wasn't about to let the greatest invention of their lifetime die in a dusty workshop. On the morning of August 5th, 1888, before sunrise, Bertha quietly walked into Karl's shop with their 2 teenage sons. Without telling her husband a single word, she climbed into the Patent-Motorwagen, cranked the engine, and rolled out onto the road. Her destination, the house she grew up in, nearly 60 miles away. To us, 60 miles doesn't sound like much. Back then, it was insanity. There were no gas stations, no repair shops, no road signs, and no one on Earth had ever driven that far in a motor vehicle. But Bertha didn't care. She wanted to prove, not to Karl, not to investors, but to the entire world, that this machine wasn't a toy. Within hours, townspeople gathered on the streets, shocked, staring at this strange carriage rumbling through their villages without a single horse. Some people ran away in fear. Others tried to stop her, convinced it was witchcraft. But Bertha kept driving. Along the way, she became the world's first mechanic, fixing fuel lines with a hairpin, insulating wires with her garter, even stopping at a pharmacy to buy Legroin, a solvent that became the world's first automotive fuel purchase. Her journey was wild, unpredictable, and dangerous, and it was exactly what the invention needed. By the time Bertha reached her mother's house, news had spread across Germany. Crowds gathered, reporters wrote articles. Suddenly, people saw the future, and they wanted to be part of it. Bertha's drive didn't just prove the car worked. It solidified the birth of the entire automotive industry. And just like that, Karl Benz's strange machine became a global sensation. But their rising success came with challenges, and a new competitor was about to enter the story.